Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Sask Ag Today. We're here live from Ag in Motion from Langham, Saskatchewan, nearby Langham. It is day 2 of the event. I'm Ryan Young alongside Doug Falconer here, and we got a great show for you lined up today, not the least of which Kevin Hirsch of SaskAgToday.com. He's here as well, and he was at an Ag Tech breakfast this morning. He'll give us some of the highlights of that, as well as Lisa Gunther, the senior editor of the Canadian Cattlemen's Magazine. She spoke with me earlier this morning about what she's up to here at Ag in Motion and what she plans on covering for today. And Doug, it's a pretty beautiful day outside. It's a little bit warm, but we got a nice breeze. And from what I understand, we have a Manitoba crop report.
Yeah, we'll also hear from James Fry, who is the Applied Research Specialist for Manitoba Agriculture based in Roblin. So all of those stories and much more coming up on today's edition of Sask Ag Today. Please stay tuned. The program will continue right after these messages.
And welcome back to Sask Ag Today. We're here live from Ag in Motion. It is day 2 of the event. We're here in Langham, Saskatchewan, just a 15-minute drive northwest of Saskatoon. It is time now for the precision weather forecast. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties on our end. Apologies for that, but we'll have a look at the forecast in the interim. This afternoon, it looks like it's going to be a mostly sunny sky and a high of 27 degrees. Winds out of the southeast at 10 to 20. Mainly clear for this evening. Winds out of the southeast again, pretty light, 10 to 20 kilometers an hour. Looking at a low of 13 degrees, not bad. Then heading into the last day of Ag in Motion on Thursday. Tomorrow, mostly sunny, high of 31 degrees. It's not a surprise it's going to be a little bit warm, and we're kind of climbing to that high for today. Winds for tomorrow out of the south-southeast at 10 to 20 kilometers an hour. Mainly clear for tomorrow night, and a low of 15 degrees, south-southwest wind at 10 to 20. Then heading over to Friday, partly to mostly sunny, looking at a slight 20% chance of isolated showers, north wind at 10 to 20. Again, the high of 31 degrees. Saturday, mostly sunny, high of 30. And Sunday, mostly sunny, and a high of 31 degrees. Normal highs for this time of year, 25. Normal lows at 11. The sun rose in Regina at around 5:02 this morning, and the sun will set at around 9:02 tonight. And taking a look around the province, in Assiniboia 26 degrees, Saskatoon also at 26, Moosomin 21, Estevan 24, Swift Current 29, and Weyburn at 25 degrees. Yorkton and Melville sitting at 22. Hot spot in the province is in Leader at 31.2 degrees, and the cool spot is in Broadview at 21.2. In Moose Jaw, it is a sunny sky, east wind at 15 kilometers an hour, temperature at 25 degrees. And in Regina, it's mainly sunny, south wind at 6 kilometers an hour, humidity 56%, barometric pressure at 102.3 and falling, and the temperature is at 24 degrees. Doug?
The GX94 temperatures this hour: the Paw is at 24 degrees, Swan River 22, Dauphin 21, Brandon, Shoal Lake Russell 19, Roblin 20. Hudson Bay is at 24 degrees, Broadview Moosomin 21, Indian Head 23, Wynyard Wadena Kelvington also 23. The Yorkton-Melville region has a sunny sky, a south-southwest wind at 8 kilometers per hour. 53% is the relative humidity. The temperature is 22 degrees. Yesterday, Yorkton reached a high of 22 degrees and dropped to a low of 11 degrees. There was no precipitation recorded in the 24-hour period ending at midnight last night. The normal high for this date in Yorkton is 24 degrees. The normal low is 12 degrees. The sun rose in Yorkton at 4:55 this morning, and it will set at 8:56 tonight. Extreme temperatures for Manitoba and Saskatchewan yesterday. The Manitoba hotspot was Melita at 23 degrees. The cold spot Churchill at +3 degrees. The Saskatchewan hotspot yesterday was Maple Creek at 30 degrees. The cold spot was a tie between Key Lake and South End. They both got down to +4 degrees. And that's a look at your agriculture weather. Please stay tuned. Sask Ag Today will return in a moment. Welcome back to Sask Ag Today. An Ag Tech breakfast was held this morning at Ag in Motion to profile a number of startup companies and what they can provide for farmers. Kevin Hirsch of SaskAgToday.com has this report.
A startup company called PathoScan can test for crop disease in the field, providing immediate answers. This is unlike labs where getting results takes days. In a similar vein, Piquetta Systems can scan plant tissue and provide immediate results for both macro as well as micronutrients. They started with potatoes in New Brunswick, then did corn, and are now calibrating for tissue analysis in canola. Prairie Clean Energy is constructing a facility in Regina to process flax straw into pellets for bioenergy as well as other high-value products. Area producers will have a market for flax straw, and they can also invest in the company, an investment approved for a 45% tax credit. Meanwhile, Faba Canada is building a protein fractionation facility for faba beans in Strathmore, Alberta, and is buying faba beans for the facility. These ag tech startups and others are in the CIBC Ag Tech Alley tent at Ag in Motion. For SaskAg Today, I'm Kevin Hirsch.
The saying, "the world is your oyster," definitely applies to Ag in Motion. There's lots to see and do at the show, and it can be almost overwhelming at times. Lisa Gunther, the senior editor of the Canadian Cattlemen's Magazine, has been focusing on Livestock Central today, one of the themed areas at Ag in Motion.
Oh, they've been really good. Yeah, it's a great show as always, and the weather's been quite warm, but we haven't been rained out yet, so that's good.
What have you been able to check out so far?
I've spent a lot of time at the livestock demos. So they've got demonstrations with sheep and cattle going through the equipment, so that's been kind of interesting. I don't know a lot about sheep, so that's been a interesting learning experience for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the sheep really don't get talked about much, quite frankly, compared to our cattle counterparts. So anything interesting that you learned with regards to the sheep?
Yeah, so I'm kind of focusing on low stress livestock handling and also human safety, actually. And I never thought about it, but the big thing with sheep is they're hard on your back because they're small. So that they've designed the equipment accordingly so people don't have to wrestle them and bend over too much. So,
what have you been able to, when you've talked to people, what have they been saying or anything like that?
Well, so they've all kind of been telling me a little bit about the features that make their equipment safe. Things like, like eliminating catwalks, another thing that I hadn't really thought about. But who wants to climb up a catwalk when you don't have to? So that, just those details are kind of interesting, and just all, how they're designing equipment to work with the animal's natural instinct to try to stay with the herd. So they always want to see the other cattle, and just the flow of it in general.
I know there's a few demonstrations over at Livestock Central there. Were you able to see any?
Yeah, I caught them yesterday afternoon, and I've also been chatting with the producer who brings the Limousin bulls, Tim Ander, about low-stress livestock handling, so yeah.
Awesome. So with today, what are your plans on covering?
So I'm going to be off to the Canadian Forage and Grasslands Association lunch to cover rotational grazing. And then I think I'm doing streeters. I have to look at my schedule every 5 minutes because there's so much going on. So, yeah.
Anything else you wanted to add?
No, just if you're here at the show, stay cool. Bring your water.
That's Lisa Gunther, senior editor of the Canadian Cattlemen's Magazine here at Ag in Motion. Coming up next, following our next break, is Ag Review with Doug Falconer, as he'll walk us through the latest ag headlines and a whole lot more. Stay tuned to 620 CKRM. Sask Ag Today will return right after these messages.
Cargill says it has passed the halfway mark on construction of its new canola processing facility located in the global transportation hub west of Regina. The facility, which is designed to process 1 million metric tons of canola per year, is now expected to open in 2025. The company says it has recently completed the purchase of just over 400 acres near the global transportation hub for better connection to existing rail lines to ship canola oil and meal pellets. This land is also expected to provide future options for canola seed deliveries. When the project was announced in 2021, Cargill originally planned to have it ready for processing the 2024 crop. The cost of the project at the time was estimated to be $350 million. Markets farm analyst Bruce Burnett is reporting consistently excellent yield potential across the prairies this year after he logged 3,500 kilometers on a crop tour on his way to Ag in Motion here at Langham. He says general crop conditions are much better than last year, especially in the southwestern prairies. Burnett says crops grown in this region, especially lentils and durum, have significantly higher yield potential than last year. The crop assessment occurred in the middle of July and assumes favorable growing conditions for the remainder of the season. The heat forecast for the end of the week will certainly have a negative impact on crop yields. Other crop perils, such as an early frost, poor harvest conditions, and detrimental weather during the filling stage of the crops, may lower these yield projections. A new solid stem spring wheat variety featuring both wheat stem sawfly and midge tolerance now has a name, AAC Oakman VB. The variety, which is in its first year of seed grower increase and marked for a 2026 release, is a surprise even to its future seed supplier. This is because naturally bred insect tolerance is rare, according to Todd Hyra, a Western business manager for CCAN here at Ag in Motion. He says the crosses were made with midge-tolerant varieties and solid stem varieties to generate it, but getting them all into one place is kind of amazing. He says it's traditional plant breeding and provides farmers with an onboard protection that is very economical. Hyra says both wheat stem sawfly and midge are becoming a growing threat throughout the prairies, so there's never been a better time for a variety like this. He compared Oakman's performance to longtime spring wheat favorite AAC Brandon. Saskatchewan Pulse Growers' new breeding partner is poised to release its first varieties. Lima Grain has some small red lentil varieties ready for commercialization. They're expected to offer significant yield improvement for Canada's lentil growers. Brent Durkach, president of Canterra Seeds, says the yield bump is considerable. He notes that for whatever reason, a lot of Saskatchewan's pea and lentil acres are planted with old genetics. He encourages those growers to consider adopting the new varieties. Canterra has been doing seed production on some of Lima Grain's new varieties for a couple of years and may have a limited release of certified seed in the fall of this year for 2025 planting. A larger portion of the commercial release will happen in the fall of 2025 in time for 2026 planting. The door to spraying herbicides with drones opened a crack with the Canadian approval of a herbicide by drone for industrial application. Canada's Pest Management Review Agency approved Garlon XRT herbicide, the first industrial vegetation product with drone application on the label. The data collection and processing of the information required for approval took many months before the company received approval from the PMRA. Now the herbicide can be sprayed by drone under utility right-of-ways, transmission lines, oil and gas leases, and on steep mountainous terrain, anywhere Garlon was already registered for use in industrial areas. The approval does not extend to drone spraying for agricultural use. Corteva says it will continue to collect data and work with the PMRA to have other pesticides registered for application by drone in the future. And SaskAg Today is always available on podcast. Listen to past shows whenever you want. find them easily by going to gx94radio.com. Also, you can hear the podcast on your Amazon Echo. Just enable the GX94 skill and choose SaskAg Today. And yes, it's free. And that's today's edition of Ag Review. Please stay tuned. SaskAg Today will continue right after these messages. Welcome back to SaskAg Today. Warmer conditions over the past week have advanced crop growth in Manitoba. James Fry is the Applied Research Specialist for Manitoba Agriculture based in Roblin. He provides an update on crop conditions in the northwest region of the province from the weekly crop report.
The crops actually are looking very good. We see that spring cereals are beginning to get into early grain formation, some of those earliest seeded crops. And definitely heading out and flowering for most fields now. We see that probably about 20% of the crop, of the cereals crop, is in excellent condition, and another 70% in good. So that's great news. That means the yields should really be up there this year.
He says pea crops are looking good as well.
Well, we see peas actually have been. So far, we've had relatively wet conditions, most people would say very wet conditions, and some cooler weather, which has definitely favored peas, so that we see those are at, beginning to pod out and at the very least in late flower, depending on the season that they were seeded. And those conditions tend to promote just good growth. And so as long as this heat that we're seeing now, it doesn't become too excessive, we should actually have some very good pea yields as well.
Fry says heat and rain were reported in much of northwest Manitoba.
We've had a week of quite varied weather. It's been, pretty high temperatures overall. We saw 34 degrees clocked at Ethelbert. And of course, with the humidity, that feels, like more like something in the mid 40s, which is great if you're at the lake, but it's not so great if you're trapped inside of a cab with no air conditioning. That definitely has helped the crops along, though. We see some very good growth as a result of all that heat, especially for heat-loving crops like soybeans and corn. What we do see, of course, is that some of that excess moisture has showed up in a few of the fields where, especially in those low spots, you see some areas that are either drowned out or very yellowed looking, depending on the crop, and their tolerance to that. So that's probably where we see, some of those spring cereals ratings that are a little lower, poor or fair, is probably due to excess moisture more than anything. And another thing to note is that we've had, at least in some areas, some very high wind events and, even some thunderstorms, strong thunderstorms and hail that flattened out some fields. So there's some fields, or especially over the weekend, saw some pretty severe lodging, that kind of those downburst winds that hopefully those will perk up again over the season and make harvest a little easier. But it's pretty likely that will show up a bit on yield in those areas that got flattened down.
He adds the warmth has allowed producers to get their spraying done.
The wind, of course, has made, and some excess moisture has always, presents a bit of a challenge to spraying. But the good news is that farmers have been able to get out and spray, by and large, spray most fields. A lot of that is underway even as we speak. And, the crops definitely need it with all of the high humidity and moisture conditions. It's kind of perfect conditions for those diseases to develop. So farmers really will want to be out scouting their fields and making sure that they're just catching something at the right time.
Fry says livestock producers are pretty happy with conditions too.
Forages are looking great, actually. Hay yields probably are going to be up this year, especially over last year, which was so terribly dry. Of course, again, and we always love to complain about something, but the humidity and the relatively frequent rainfalls have made it challenging for some to find the time to put it down, to get it dry. So as a result, we do see more perhaps than in previous years, silage bales or bales getting wrapped, and that's just a good way to get that hay up off the field, even when the moisture is still much higher than it would be for a regular bale.
He says haying is moving along nicely as well.
Yeah, I think so. The headlands have gone down first, and now we're starting to see the interior of a lot of the fields getting hayed. And like I said, the yields appear to be very good, and certainly the quality is there, because there's been lots of lush growth that has given lots of leaf matter in those hay fields.
And Fry says dugouts are in good shape as well.
By and large, I think it's fair to say that most fields or most pastures have plenty of water, and maybe even some of them have a little too much water, depending on what soil conditions. But dugouts definitely are across the board. I've been hearing that they're pretty well recharged, and creeks are running and good. So that's all very good news.
James Fry is the Applied Research Specialist for Manitoba Agriculture, based in Roblin. Please stay tuned. Sask Ag Today will continue from Ag in Motion near Langham in a moment.
Mark. And welcome back to Sask Ag Today. We're here live at Ag in Motion. Today is day 2 of the show. Looking at grain prices from Viterra, they're mostly up in early trading today. Canola is up $6.60 to $5.75.22. Flax is down $20 to $6.30.04. Oats is up $22 to $2.50.32. And one red spring wheat is up $8.30 to $2.44.63. And the rest remain unchanged. Durum $324.87, feed barley $211.57, chickpeas $925.94, lentils $726.50, yellow peas $377.08, and feed wheat at $226.45.
Turning to the ICE futures, canola futures closed up across the board today. November canola closed at $631.50, up $10.30. January canola closed at $637.90, up $9.60. September Minneapolis wheat closed at $591 3/4. That's up 16 cents. September Kansas City wheat closed at $561 per bushel, up 10 3/4 cents. September Chicago wheat closed at $539 1/4. That's up 8 1/2 cents. September corn closed at $3.98 per bushel. That's up 2 1/4 cents. August soybeans closed at $10.97 1/4, up 6 3/4 cents. September oats closed at $3.24 3/4, up 12 3/4 cents. And that's the commodities update. Please stay tuned. Sask Ag Today will return right after these messages.
The livestock. Ask Ag Today here at Ag in Motion. Here are the livestock quotes. They're brought to you by the Weyburn Livestock Auction. Call Weyburn Livestock at 842-4574. Now here are the latest livestock quotes.
This is the market report for the Weyburn Livestock Exchange for the week of July 16th. Our last regular sale was on July 3rd. D1 and D2 cows sold from $1.80 to $1.97. D3 cows sold from $1.60 to $1.80. Canner cows sold from $1.40 to $1.60. Heiferettes sold from $2.40 to $2.80, and good butcher bulls sold from $2.09 to $2.28. There weren't enough steers or heifers in any one weight break to establish an accurate price quotation. This has been Stephanie Digg reporting from the Weyburn Livestock Exchange, the market that gets the cattle and the prices too.
And the latest pork prices are at $217.84 per ckg.
U.S. live cattle futures for August closed at 184.27. That's up 160. October live cattle closed at 185.57, up 105. August feeder cattle closed at 258.55, down 7. September feeder cattle closed at 259.55, up 2. August lean hogs closed at 91.65, up 37. October lean hogs closed at 73.67, up 147. And that's the livestock market conditions. Please stay tuned. Sask Ag Today will continue from Ag in Motion near Langham right after this. Welcome back to Sask Ag Today. Many companies are in the business of providing generic crop protection products directly to farmers. These off-patent generics are typically less expensive than the original branded products. As Kevin Hirsch of SaskAgToday.com reports, another company is entering the direct-to-farmer generic marketplace.
Sharda Crop Chem Limited has long been a product supplier to retail companies. It operates in 80 countries around the world. Dean York is a regional manager with Sharda in Western Canada. He says generic products are increasingly being used by producers because the cost per acre is often considerably less.
There hasn't been any really new chemistry coming about for many years. Most of the new chemistry is actually coming out of China. But in terms of the generic market, that's expanding quite significantly. Before it used to be 80 or 90% branded and 10 to 20% generic. And what even the retailers are telling me is that's starting to invert somewhat with folks know exactly what they want. They're comfortable with, from their private agronomists, they want to have ingredients to solve their problem, not necessarily a brand branded stuff, and sure, if they're in the branded mix and they've got their rebates and all that, that's totally cool. But being able to have access to the most efficient product that they can put in the tank, they know what it is, they trust where it comes from, the product's going to be available for them when they want it, that is absolutely growing. And yes, there's a lot of people, a lot of new entities entering that marketplace in a very hard rate. I'm sure it's hard for some to keep up to a little bit, but Chart has actually been around since like late 70s kind of thing. So we've been around longer than most. Lots of people use their stuff, they just haven't known it was us powering it.
I think because it has been cooler, we are not yet seeing the full effect as the
In the direct-to-farmer market, Sharda CropChem will be competing with companies such as Johnston's Grain, AgriCity, and Farm Business Network. For SaskAg Today, I'm Kevin Hirsch.
And please stay tuned. SaskAg Today will continue from Ag in Motion near Langham right after these messages.
And welcome back to SaskAg Today, live from Ag in Motion at the Discovery Farm site near Langham. It's time now for the Resource Report, brought to you by Mazank Fuels, your local branded Petro-Canada wholesaler serving southern Saskatchewan for over 40 years. Fill up the tank, call Mazank, 306-721-6667. A vast majority of business leaders in Canada are concerned about climate change hitting their operations this year. A survey of 350 business owners by KPMG found 92% fear their company will feel the effects of extreme weather, including 67% who said they were extremely or very concerned. The survey also found more than half of business owners report having profits affected by extreme weather last year. That extreme weather ranged from forest fires and flooding to extreme heat. Air Canada may be left on the hook for $100 million in a court case involving maintenance center workers who lost their jobs more than a decade ago. That's according to a lawyer representing the workers in their class action. A 2022 ruling in Quebec Superior Court found the airline violated federal law by failing to keep 3 centers operational after the contractor that ran them closed down in 2012. A judge this week decided on a formula to calculate lost wages and other damages for the 2,200 former employees of shuttered plants in Montreal, Winnipeg, and Mississauga, Ontario. On the markets, the TSX is down 150 points at 22,846. The Dow is up 225 points to 41,175. Oil is up $1.73 at $81.40 per barrel. And the Canadian dollar is at 73 cents U.S. And that's the Resource Report, and that is going to conclude, Wednesday's edition of SaskAg Today, live from Ag in Motion. Doug, it's been a pretty good day so far.
Another very busy day, about as many people here today as we saw yesterday, and I would expect we'll see another good turnout again tomorrow. It's been great weather so far, barely a cloud in the sky, so remember to bring a hat and bring some water because it's hot out there, and you're going to dehydrate if you don't take measures to prevent it.
That's right, and also stay informed on the latest weather alerts, as there is a heat warning circulating around Saskatchewan. So stay cool, stay in the shade, and again, bring plenty of water. And that's going to do her for Sask Ag Today. On behalf of Doug Falconer, I'm Ryan Young. Have yourself a nice day. If you missed any